Long live Palestine! Long live Palestine!
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما لكم لا تقاتلون في سبيل الله والمستضعفين من الرجال والنساء.
Giving you a brief translation of what was recited from chapter 5 of the Holy Quran. That is why we decree for the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul without it being guilty of manslaughter or corruption on the earth is as though he had killed all mankind. And whoever saves a life is as though he has saved all of mankind.
I hope to add my voice to yours so that we can make our voice strong and loud and stand against injustice. Last year, the Middle East broke out in a series of revolutions. The Arab Spring was hailed by the media as people from different countries and different nations got up and demanded their rights. They demanded democracy, they demanded equality, social justice, and liberty. And all nations were hailed and praised. All nations but one, and it was Bahrain. It's a small country with a very small population, but the injustice that that's happening in Bahrain is unbelievable. Now, I didn't hear about it from the media because the media didn't even talk about it. I didn't hear about it from friends. I was there and I saw it.
Bahrainis wanted what everybody else in the region wanted. They struggled for democracy and liberty and peace. And the world just remained silent. They didn't recognize them. They didn't understand what was happening because nobody was covering this. First, the injustice started with gangs that attacked homes and pillaged homes and attacked people in the middle of the night. And then the Saudi army was invited by the Bahraini regime to crack down on the revolution. And the pillaging turned into utter destruction of homes and properties. And the attacks turned into a clear cleansing of a whole nation. But it's not the amount of suffering or the amount of pain that Bahrainis went through that's really shocking and really painful. What is really painful and what is really, really terrifying is the sound of silence that followed. In Bahrain, innocent people, more than 1,600 people, were arrested, brutally beaten and tortured. And they were often taken from their homes in the middle of the night, dragged out of their homes, and the world just looked at them and they just remained silent. In Bahrain, women and children as young as 11 years old were arrested. Yes, 11 years old in prison, apparently for organizing terrorist attacks against the government. I don't know how an 11-year-old can do that, but apparently in Bahrain that happens. An 11-year-old arrested and tortured in dark dungeons, and the world remained silent. In Bahrain, doctors and medical personnel were arrested, tortured, and even prosecuted for helping seriously wounded individuals, and the world remained silent. In Bahrain, doctors, lawyers, academics, athletes, human rights activists, artists, journalists, students, scholars, and men of peace are locked behind bars. The best and the brightest were detained for no other reason than practicing their right to self-expression, and the world remained silent. In Bahrain, people were forced into unemployment simply because they participated in protests, in peaceful protests, to demand their rights, and the world remained silent. In Bahrain, more than 80 people were killed. among them women and children, and the world remained silent. In Bahrain, innocent blood is shed every day. Just 2 days ago, a 16-year-old was killed with live ammunition by the Bahraini police. Families are gassed inside their homes while they sit in their living rooms. And injured civilians can't get treated because hospitals have become detention centers. And the world remained silent. Well, we know one entity that wasn't silent, and it was our government. They did speak, but unfortunately it was in the negative. If you just look up the Foreign Affairs website, you will see about the Bahrain and Canada relations, and you'll see the sentence, Canada maintains cordial and growing relations with Bahrain. Now, why would a peace-loving country maintain relations with a country that has overstepped the rights, the international human rights? The Canadian government continues to put self-interest above human rights, and this is unacceptable by Canadians, it's unacceptable by the world, and it's unacceptable by humanity. Our own government must know that we are disgusted by the silence. Now, you might be thinking, why should I, a Canadian living here in Vancouver, care about some country across the world, thousands of miles away, a country that's really hard to spot on a map? It's simple. Caring makes us human. And there are 3 easy ways that we can show how we care. The first is to know. We have to know about the injustices. We have to get the facts. We have to get to the bottom of the truth. We have to know the right information. Because knowing about the injustices is going to make us act in the end. So don't turn off the TV when you see pain. Don't turn the page in the newspaper when you see suffering. And don't close the browser when you see injustice. Feel the pain. Imagine it was your family. Imagine it was your country. How would you react? How would you want people to treat you? Feel the struggle and the pain, because that's what makes us feel human. Second, speak, and speak as loud as you can. Tell everybody you know about the injustices. Tell them you disapprove of the injustices. Tell your neighbors, your friends, your family, your coworkers, your colleagues, anyone who will listen, anyone who wants to know about the injustices, even if they don't want to know, tell them about it. Because our voice is what makes us sound human. And third, act. And you might think that this is really hard. It's not. Once you know about the injustices and you raise your voice, acting against those injustices is just going to be second nature. It's just going to happen. Right? I mean, this is cliche, we all say it, but right, seriously, it works. Write to your MPs. Write to government officials. Tell them you disagree with what's happening. Tell them to take a stand. Write to the media. Demand coverage of the injustices, wherever they may be. Just demand it. And if you can't do that, write to the people who are seeking freedom overseas. Tell them you support them, that you care, that you really support their cause. Extending our hands to someone who needs them makes us human. It makes us realize humanity. Our knowledge of injustices, our voice, and our actions against those injustices are what makes us human. So let us not wait any longer. Let's not make those suffering wait any longer. Let's stand with all those struggling in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Bahrain, in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia, in Burma. Let's stand with them. Together, let's give a voice to the people who are left voiceless. Thank you.
I have another poem for you. It's about Palestine. I am not free for you to grab and pillage and stick your flag in my chest and proclaim it territory. I will not have your dusty iron boots treading on my veins. I will not be bought or sold or given a price. There will be no lines, no borders, no barriers, no blockades on my skin. I am the proud and free Palestine. Binding my wrist with your barbed wire, blinding me with the fire you rain, suffocating me with smoke and debris, piercing deep into my flesh the haunting cries of orphans, of laughter cut short in a bomb raid, of the helpless homeless, kicked out of the land he called home, to be humiliated from checkpoint to checkpoint, for dignity. For how long will you push till I roar back? I will break free, wrench free from racial shackles that bind me. I will rise from the wreckage. I will breathe free from the Mediterranean to the Dead Sea. This is a warning. Tread gently. I am the Holy Land, the home of Isa. I am Masjid al-Aqsa. I am home of the children of Abraham. From Moses to Muhammad, I am the proud and free Palestine. My soil hums with history. So come with respect. Bow with humility. Don't claim what hasn't been yours. Don't take what is mine. I will not have you wrench me. I will not have you wrench my soil into pieces and parts. Let you declare ownership where you're only a guest. I will not let you poison me with blood and plundering. Stab me with checkpoints and humiliation. I am the proud and free Palestine. My children will reduce your barricades to pathways. My voice will defy your guns. My pebbles will threaten your injustice. I will not be silenced. I will rise from the rubble. I will rise. I am the proud and free Palestine. Thank you.
We have a pamphlet circulating on the companies complicit in Israel war crime, and we hope that you will all participate in the movement. In Vancouver, we are very lucky to have Boycott Israeli Appetite campaign, BIAC, an active part of our community. I am pleased to invite Charlotte Cates to give talk on the plight of Palestinians against Israeli oppression and apartheid. Charlotte Cates is a Palestinian solidarity advocate with Salmidun, Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, and Boycott Israeli Apartheid campaign in Vancouver, Canada, on ceded coast Salish territory. She recently traveled to Gaza, Palestine, as a part of resistant refugee rights and return and international solidarity delegation. We welcome Sister Cates with great salawat.
Thank you very much to the organizers for having us here today to be part of today's demonstration. And first, before I say anything, I want to recognize and acknowledge the injustice of the fact that we're having this demonstration itself and all of our organizing on what is itself unceded and occupied native Coast Salish land, and that we stand in solidarity with the indigenous people of this land, just as we stand in solidarity with the indigenous people of Palestine as they struggle for liberation from occupation. Today we're here to mark the Day of Jerusalem, the Day of Quds, the day that is internationally stands to recognize an occupied city held under apartheid, a holy city, an imprisoned city, a city that is a victim of racism, of oppression, of discrimination, and a city that is also a homeland and a heartland of resistance and of struggle for liberation. Jerusalem today is an icon of apartheid, and it is an icon of resistance. Jerusalem today is a city of home demolitions, of occupation, of illegal colonial settlements, of land confiscation. It is a city that is claimed by an occupier, and it is also a city of an oppressed and struggling people. It is a city where yesterday 3 Palestinians were lynched as they walked down the street because of who they were and because of their identity. Jerusalem is a city of occupation. It is a city of apartheid. But we are also here today not just because Jerusalem is a holy city for many religions, but because Jerusalem is a center of resistance. Jerusalem is the city where Palestinians stand to block the bulldozers as they come to demolish their homes. Jerusalem is the city where Palestinians stand together to say this is our eternal and undivided capital, no matter how long it is occupied, and no matter how many soldiers are sent in, and no matter how many checkpoints are placed there. But Jerusalem is a place where people stand and unite for freedom, not just a place of oppression and apartheid. And it is not just a beacon of religion. We hear so much in the media that the struggle over Jerusalem is a struggle over religion, but we know that the struggle over Jerusalem is a struggle for justice. It's a struggle of oppressed people against an occupying nation. It's a struggle of a people subject to apartheid against the apartheid system that seeks to keep them there forever. Jerusalem was first occupied in 1948, and 75,000 to 80,000 Palestinians in Jerusalem were made refugees, joining the 750 to 800,000 Palestinians that were made refugees throughout Palestine in what was called the Nakba, the occupation of Palestine. And today there are nearly 7 million Palestinian refugees, the world's largest refugee population, struggling to return to their homes and lands, a right that's been guaranteed to them by everything from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to explicitly in the UN to any fundamental sense of justice, but that has been denied to them because they are Palestinian and because there is an Israeli apartheid state that is based on denying Palestinians their right to return in order to preserve a so-called demographic balance that relies on racism to keep it alive. And so when we look at Jerusalem, it's also a city from which millions of Palestinians are being excluded, both as refugees denied their right to return home, and as Palestinians, Muslims, and Christians denied their right to pray at their holy sites, at Al-Aqsa Mosque, at the churches where Jesus walked, at the mosques and churches that are at the center of Palestinian religious identity, as well as at the center of Palestinian cultural and national identity. Palestinians are barred every day, as in this holy month, from even praying in the fundamental sites, in the fundamental holy sites of their religion. And in fact, those holy sites are themselves under threat from archaeological excavations and other projects meant to ensure and meant to recreate Jerusalem. And just as was done in Haifa and Jaffa, and just as is attempted to be done in Ramallah and Tulkarem and Gaza and all of Palestine, to try to remove the Palestinian identity of that city and replace it instead with an apartheid occupation identity. But what Jerusalem tells us today is that the bulldozers are not successful. What Jerusalem tells us today is that despite the billions of dollars from the U.S. administration, despite the unconditional support of the Harper government, despite the role of the Canadian government in supporting Israeli occupation and apartheid and declaring itself Israel's best friend in the world, despite the Caterpillar bulldozers, despite the over 200,000 settlers that have invaded Jerusalem, displacing Palestinians, despite the fact that there are over 10,000 homes on demolition orders, 80,000 homes at risk of 80,000 people at risk of losing their homes due to home demolitions, despite the fact that all of that exists, Jerusalem continues to resist and continues to struggle, and it's because of that the Palestinians in Jerusalem are regularly denied the right to participate in election campaigns, to participate in politics at all. Jerusalem civil or society organizations are regularly shut down by occupation authorities, and Jerusalemites are constantly at risk of losing their identity. It's a constant struggle, and hundreds of thousands of Jerusalemites have been stripped of their identity cards if they dare to travel outside of their homeland. And so Jerusalem today, in this day of Jerusalem, is an occupied city. It is a victim of apartheid, and that's why we are here, and that's why the name of Jerusalem resonates so strongly, not just among Palestinians, not just among solidarity activists, but everywhere around the world. The name of Jerusalem stands as a holy city, yes, but also a city of struggle, a city of resistance, a city that holds the hope of liberation for all of us and for all people around the world who struggle for justice, for dignity, for human rights, and for liberation. So I just want to encourage everybody today to join that movement, to join that struggle, to unite our causes together, to stand for Palestine and to stand for all of our struggles for justice against imperialism, against colonialism, against racism, and against apartheid, to join the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which is growing. Just this week, the United Church of Canada announced that it was going to boycott settlement products from this point on. And that's just the latest victory in the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement that's spreading around the world. Also here in Canada, it's worth recognizing again that the Canadian Union of Postal Workers also has endorsed the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement nationally, and that there's a lot of opportunity for organizing in churches and trade unions and our universities and schools to raise the voice of Palestine and say this is not some issue that's happening over there. This is an issue that the Harper government, that the government of Jason Kenney and John Baird is directly complicit in the war crimes that are happening every day against Palestinians. In the occupation of Jerusalem, in the apartheid against Palestinians in occupied Palestine 48, and the siege on Gaza, the Canadian government is complicit. And so we are going to go and we're going to boycott Israeli products, and we're going to demand that our institutions divest from Israeli funds and from funds that go to that profiteer from occupation. And so I want to encourage everybody to visit boycottisraeliapartheid.org. Go visit the table for Gaza's ARC, which is doing great solidarity work here. Speak to us afterwards and build our united struggle for a free Palestine from the river to the sea, for a liberated Jerusalem, and for a liberated world. Thank you.
Those who have a voice and those who do not have a voice. But in the eyes of God, every individual, rich or poor, young or old, man or woman, has a voice. Now I know that our brothers and sisters around the world who are suffering under the tyranny of oppression have raised their voices to God, and God will certainly hear their prayers. But it is often us who are silent. It is often us who do not use our voices, our God-given voices, to speak out against oppression and to pray to the one God who can truly alleviate suffering. So let us raise our voices today and join our brothers and our sisters in their prayers to God. Let us unite with them in solidarity, with one voice to one God. Allahumma farrij an kulli makrub. O God, relieve those who are oppressed, those who are suffering around the world under the yoke of oppression, whether it be in Palestine, or Bahrain, or Myanmar, or Pakistan, or Saudi Arabia, or elsewhere, wherever it may be. O God, we ask you that those who have gone on the path of oppression, let them taste the consequences of their own tyranny. Let them know what it feels like to lose their home, their possessions, their close ones. Allahumma fukka kulla asir. O God, there are many individuals, fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, and even children, as you've heard, who have been imprisoned unjustly for standing up and demonstrating against their governments. They have spent many days and months and years away from their families. We ask you to release them from their bondage and to return them to their loved ones. Allahumma aslih kull fasidin min umur al-muslimin. O God, we have many difficulties in the Muslim world and in elsewhere. We ask you to rectify them and to help us create a world of peace and stability as you have promised. Allahumma ghayyir su'a halina bihusni halik. O God, change our adverse state of affairs into a good one. Allahumma qdi anna ad-dayn waghnina min al-faqr. Innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. O God, remove our own debts and obstacles and that which hinders us to come to the aid of our brothers and sisters who are suffering at the hands of the oppressors around the world. O God, we ask you to instill in us a positive drive for social justice, for awareness, for activism. Truly you have power to do all that we ask. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. And we ask you to send your choicest blessings on the noble Prophet and his family, who have taught us that we should not remain quiet in the face of oppression, but that we should stand up and speak out against all forms of injustice and tyranny, whether at home or abroad. Let this prayer be from the bottom of our hearts, so that we may join our prayer with those who are truly praying from the bottom of their hearts, and speak with one voice, inshallah.